The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for hanging out. Welcome to Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. Hope you are gearing up for time with family, friends, loved ones, and maybe a Husker football rewind on YouTube or two. If it gets a little soggy for your 4th of July, can dial us up at 489-1240. 489-1240 or 800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com. You're invited to check us out if you want to stream on YouTube. If you've never tried it out, check that out, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Find us on Twitter as well. Follow the show at H Varsity Radio, at Hurrdat Sports, and at Hail Varsity. So a lot to get to. We're loaded up with some good folks today. We'll spend some time with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. We'll sneak Mitch in before he gets too crazed with the sparklers and artillery shells. So Mitch Sherman from The Athletic here in about 15 minutes. In hour two, Brandon Vogel going to be with us from Counter Read. We're off Thursday, and we'll move Vogues up and spend some time with Brandon Vogel of Counter Read. Then Matt Vrzal going to be with us. Husker, he won't say it, but I will, stand out, and part of Pisons, of course, and we'll just talk some ball with him. Again, the numbers to get in, 489-1240, and like and subscribe on all the platforms. You're going out of town, check us out on the podcast platform, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. We will get to our starting five. Got a little bit of meat left on the bone from Joel Klatt and Matt Rhule from yesterday. We'll dive into the topic of them Buffs and Coach Rhule's time with Carolina. Some of the things he took away from that. Athlon out with their predicted level of finish for the Big Ten, and where does Nebraska land? That's interesting to talk about. I think if we ask you here July 2nd, 2024, would you take it? I think yes. That number is 7. 7 out of 18 is where they project Nebraska. Some interesting thoughts here as well. 10 big predictions from Andy Staples of On 3. And Nebraska comes in as a bold prediction. 7-0 going into Columbus. We'll get into that as well. Elijah, how you doing, man? You geared up here? You ready for a little breather? I know you're putting your camping plans together.
Yeah, the camping plans, we'll see. We had dreams of grandeur. The dreams of grandeur have turned into dreams of averageness. But getting out camping is better than no camping at all. So we're still looking at that this weekend, looking at blowing things up, obviously, on the 4th of July, drinking beers. It should be good. I've said it before on this show. I'll say it again.
Blowing things up.
It's my favorite holiday of the year.
That's awesome.
Favorite. It's been my favorite holiday. I know there's people that it was their favorite holiday when they were a kid and they grew up and they're like, well, it's not as special anymore. It's still special for me. This is still the best.
What's the wrong side of the budget? What I mean by that here, what's a price point that's fair?
For all festivities or just
all
fireworks?
Festivities. Barbecue / cookout,
yeah,
alcohol,
fireworks.
Those are your big three.
I'd say probably 3 to 4 months' pay is about what you're looking at.
What?
I'm kidding. No.
You're not really kidding, are you?
Last year, my number was...
Well, I dropped 10 grand on the mother of all parties.
Last year, my number was equivalent to a PlayStation 5.
Which was what? $800?
Like $650. And
I budget for it throughout the year. Now,
yes.
we all know folks that love to gamble and get across the river, see our friends at Ameristar to do that. But honestly, man, folks, we have friends that they're good at it, And it's not one of these, I hit the parlay. No, they're legitimately, I know 2 or 3 guys that Junior grew up playing ball with that are good at it. They are good at it.
Are they of age to gamble?
Yes.
Okay.
They're well beyond age to gamble.
You said Junior grew up with them. I'm like, oh.
No, Junior grew up with
their kids.
Their kids.
Ah, okay. It's making sense now.
I'm not trying to entrap Junior on running the illegal underage booking service. No. Never, Junior. But no, they're good. They're good during college football. They pick their spots with MLB. They're good with college basketball. And hey, how's it going? I'll check in on them, and they'll be like, "Oh, solid." I mean, it's an extra revenue stream for them because they budget for it.
Well, see,
I don't know how much the keno they play takes away from their college football winnings. You get to a certain age, it's all about staying within the parameters of the budget.
I was saying how much they have to pay on dinners for their wives, so they're not like, hey, where'd that $400 go from this past weekend?
Honey, it's ramen and mac and cheese. Sorry. Daddy took a L and bet the Rams.
So, see, that's not my strategy. I think and I've mentioned, I've gotten out umpiring a lot over the past couple weeks. That's some firework money right there. There's a little bit of budgeting that goes on through just the month of June as a whole. That's like, you know what? Could I go out and get dinner with friends tonight? Sure. Could I not and save some money and put it towards the firework fund? Yes, absolutely. So there's a little bit of that goes on. I'm still not 100% sure what my number is going to be this year. It tends to be like a little bit over what I set out for myself, because I get to the fireworks stand and I go, well, I mean, that looks pretty cool. 24 artillery shells? Like,
at that price, you can't say no.
I mean, look at the price per shell. That's, I convinced myself it's a deal.
Got to do the math. It's like spending way too much money on a clubbing shirt back in the day. I got to wear it 400 times, and it might still be in my closet, but I got the price per wear out of it.
Exactly. So I'm kind of in that boat. I don't have a number in mind. I'd say total for myself, I'm probably going to be over 500, but less than 1,000 total price point. That's okay.
Like it's a car payment or rent, brother.
That's.
And I sound really judgy on that.
That's 2 weekends of umpiring for me.
Okay.
Essentially, two to three, depending on how north of 500 I am. Like that's what you do.
You or do folks chip in? Or they bring in food? I mean, how does it work out? Bring your own beer and bring your own meat for the grill.
Sure.
Kind of deal.
Sure. Depends on the year. Depends how generous I'm feeling. Depends how much I spend on fireworks. It's my favorite holiday of the year. I mean, think about how much you spend on Christmas presents. That's a lot of people's favorite holiday of the year. My Christmas is the 4th of July, and I spend it on myself. Huh? It's self-care.
That's fine. No, that's all good. Let's get our starting 5. Elijah's saying between 500 and 700. We'll set the window there. Do you exceed that in gambling, or just with your tailgate fund for the college football season? You'll spend that going to Minneapolis or Boulder. Think of the road trips. Think of the road trips you plan. A lot of Nebraska fans have picked a game a year. I don't know what we spent in Iowa 2 years ago, but it was totally worth it. I mean, it was fun to go cover that, and then see Mickey and crew get the win. Justin is in first. Patrick second. Tuck is here and accounted for. Tuck, good to have you back. Jack is here. Good to have you. Brennan from the Black Hills. Good to be in for you, Brennan. I know he's been doing his business, and he's been catching us in hour 2, but on your time and on your timetable with the podcast. So appreciate you making time. Michael is here. Jimmy is in. Jeff, good to have you, brother. Robert is in. Crew is here. Crew, are you going to be at the gym later? I will ask that question to the masses. I will be wheezing away on the treadmill. Michael says, aloha. Steve says, explosives and alcohol, what could go wrong? And then Coach Brandon Kool-Aid. Like hearing from Coach Brandon. More of your thoughts and comments as we get rolling here on a Tuesday edition. Tomorrow, best of. Thursday, best of. Friday, best of. And give Elijah a hug and a shout out for helping put that together. Jeff says, I'm with Elijah. Me and several of his buddies spend about $500 to $1,000 to have a great night. Growing up, it was always cool because we'd go over to some friend's house, the same crew typically for X number of years, and it'd be in the driveway. And depending on how late the evening went, whether it fell on a Thursday or Friday or a weekend, the 40-yard dash away from the monster artillery shell grew slower as the beers got consumed.
You ever get the old artillery shell accidentally put it upside down?
No.
That's
the wind did blow one over one time, and it was time to scatter. But what?
Those are always the best.
It's never happened to you?
No, it's happened. I'm just laughing because those are the memorable and best moments of the 4th of July.
What's awful, though, is the garage doors open that one year. So it's just, rattling around in the garage, and you don't want it to land on the mower or the snow blower or the gas tank.
See, this
and hilarity would ensue.
This reminds me of a time, this would have been, I think, early middle school years for me, where me and the family are lighting off fireworks. One of the neighbors, this is over at our former place on Sioux Street. Mm-hmm. Great time out in Indian Village.
You'd throw the bones.
What happened was it was a somewhat windy 4th of July, and same thing happened where the artillery tube blew over, and it shot it directly at our neighbor's porch as he was sitting on his porch, and it went off, and he didn't come back outside.
So you scream "4" like you're just part of a bad tee shot?
No, we just kind of looked around with wide eyes as he walked inside, seemingly unhurt, and did not walk back out of his house the rest of his night. Felt a little bit bad, but memorable.
Instead, he came back with PVC pipe and those Texas bottle rockets and got even.
He came outside with a knife and a gun.
No, don't need it. Don't need it. Let's talk Athlon here. So Athlon is out with their Big Ten rankings. UCLA's way down the totem pole. Last. Not a huge shocker there. Ohio State's first, Oregon State second. Not a big wow there. But how does Nebraska grab you at 7? Would you take that and run? Or do you see Nebraska being able to finish higher than 7? 6 is Iowa. Iowa's going to be good defensively and special teams wise. Maybe they get McNamara healthy for a full year. Maybe they get a bump and jump in their offense without little Brian there. But Iowa's pretty good. Their schedule's pretty doable. I mean, they should be a 10-win football team this year with their schedule. SC is in at 5. Penn State in at 4. And you have Drew Aller, their 5-star quarterback that's going into year 3. They hired the Kansas offensive coordinator away. Can their passing game get jump-started? If so, they've got guys on the outside in a running game, a great running game with their traditional defense. So Penn State could maybe challenge and push Michigan this year for that 3rd spot. So I'm okay with Penn State being in the top 4. Not quite sure. Talent-wise, USC should be forever and always in that top 5. Are they just too soft is the question. I think Iowa, and we'll take that phone call here in a minute. I think Iowa at 6 is fine. I could see Iowa bumping up to 5, maybe 4 with their schedule. And I could see Nebraska rising up to 6. Best case scenario, maybe 5. That's if the following is lived out. When we talk about that breakthrough, the bad luck is now good luck. Those close losses are close wins, and your turnover margin is plus or even, or if it is still minus, it's minimally minus. It's minus 1, 2, or 3 versus 17. So I'm not sure that I think Nebraska's schedule is as easy as everyone's saying. That's one of the parts that Andy Staples jumps into with why Nebraska can and he believes will start 7-0. I think Colorado's going to be fun, but a test. I think Rutgers is going to be black and blue, kind of a brass knuckle fight, but you get them at home at least. But those are two losable games before you get to Ohio State.
I think 7's a respectable place to be if that is where you finish in the Big Ten. One of the things I want to discuss here, though, is it's seemingly common knowledge right now. 3 to 4, likely 4 Big Ten teams will make it into the college football playoff every single year.
Better.
Three in a bad year, 4 in an average year, probably.
5 in a exceedingly glorious year.
Sure. Or a year where everyone else is a little bit down. I think you can pencil in Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State as your 3. Yeah?
Ohio State, Oregon.
Michigan.
I think it's going to flux.
There's too many questions with Michigan with the coaching regime to me.
I think it's going to fluctuate after Ohio State and Oregon.
That's fair.
I think you're going to have I think somebody could raise up to 3. That could be Nebraska in 2 years. It could be Penn State with their experience at quarterback if that 5-star pedigree lives up. Could be Michigan if they don't drop off or miss a beat, but I think they're gonna just because of where they've been. And I think you're going to have a new man at USC if SC does not fix their defense, because they're not going to live long or well in the Big Ten. They're not going to be able to score the points that they've been scoring. They'll be too badgered and bloodied. What's Mitch Sherman think? He's up next on Hail Varsity.
It's that time.
Hey, Mitch.
Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, how much rain did you get, man?
Well, we're at 6 inches from yesterday morning until now. I think about 6. We got 5 plus overnight last night here near Gretna, and that did cause some significant issues that have me on very much a lack of sleep. So,
how does Mitch Sherman attack the gruesome morning that many have to? I've lived with it, dealt with it. Elijah's done it. You as well. Do you scream and then go to work, or do you just internalize the frustration? Do you release the fury?
I've released the fury before, and that doesn't do a whole lot. Last night, it was 1 a.m. There was more panic that was going on because it's difficult to get much help at that time of night. You know, if you need to borrow some pieces of equipment, I mean, we only keep a certain amount of shop vacs and other items in our own home. And if this is going on at 8 o'clock at night, there's no shortage of neighbors that are willing to come and help, and didn't really have that luxury. Although I will say one did a great service and joined us for about 2 hours from 2 to 4 in the morning. So shout out to Danielle, my neighbor, who I was just talking to as you guys called. There was some panic. I would say I envisioned. We had a lot of water that came through, and it would just overwhelmed my. My drainage system was working fine, but it was overwhelmed and backed up a window well to about 4 feet above the window line, which means that you got a lot of water coming into a finished basement. So that's no fun. And I was seeing like insurance claims and tearing out drywall and all kinds of stuff, and we caught up to it, but I think there's probably still some work to be done to get it back to normal.
Final question, Mitch. Is the infamous and legendary Mitch Sherman bar safe?
Yeah, it is. It is fine. You guys have seen it, at least on Zoom. That is in a different area of the lower level, and I will say that the no water even approached the bar / StreamYard podcasting space. That was all completely dry and totally fine. If I hadn't been home, or if there had been a power failure last night, I will say that the entire lower level, the entire basement, would have probably been under feet of water, and then there would have been damage to the bar. But we did escape that.
good to hear. The Locked On Nebraska pod with Mitch. Be sure to check that out. Mitch, a lot going on in the football world, and pretty good stuff from Joel Klatt and Matt Rhule. His sit-down that aired yesterday, a lot of things covered. Topic of confidence, topic of Dylan Raiola. Also, I want to get your reaction, though, and we played it a little bit earlier in the show, but just some of those lessons that Matt Rhule opened up about with his time in the NFL and the application, specifically from the roster management and build in this new era of college football. It's pretty advantageous to have a guy that had to juggle that for a time in the NFL.
Yeah, that was an interesting part. I thought there were a lot of interesting parts of the interview, as you mentioned. That's interesting always to hear Matt Rhule talk about his time in the NFL and to hear him reflect on, what he describes as some of the mistakes. Maybe the most interesting thing about that I heard him say in the Joel Klatt interview was how coming out of the COVID year or years, he just didn't go far enough in his look back at it in developing relationships or advancing relationships with his players. And you can see in his time at Nebraska, which is what we have to gauge Matt Rhule on. And I think he's a similar coach at Nebraska, although, of course, more experienced and there's lessons that have been learned at every stop. A similar coach to what he was at Baylor and to some degree, I'd say at Temple, although that was his first head coaching job. And he was unable in some ways to do that or didn't feel as at ease to do that when it came to building those relationships until his last year in Carolina. And you heard him mention that in the interview, that he felt that what he was doing in that last year, which ironically is the year that he did not survive, fired mid-season, that he had made strides in kind of finding again that personal connection with the guys on his roster. And I think that's a part of the reason that continues to be so important to him in his year and a half at Nebraska.
Do you think that relationship factor, Mitch, is part of the reason why Nebraska has such a bloated roster right now? We spent some time this week and on our Average Joe show as well talking about the potential roster caps coming to college football, and I think that can even relate to Nebraska's somewhat smaller recruiting class that we see so far this summer. The thought that maybe roster caps on the horizon can change how you have to do things, but Matt Rhule, to his credit, has been able to get guys and keep guys, I think, because of relationships, and because of that it's helped fulfill part of what his plan has been at Nebraska, which is to keep a large roster so you can really run the 4 stations at practice like they used to back in the old days.
Yeah, I think they're going to enjoy it and live with it for as long as they can, the larger roster. And well, you may see a reflection in the size of this recruiting class with relation to what's coming with roster size limitations. They're not backing down from continuing to build this roster up toward 150 players. They got under 150 players when the summer began, and they reported back after finals, and then they've since added, a number of I believe 5 players who were beyond the 2024 team, a quarterback, an offensive lineman, now a defensive back with Syer Wright the other day, a kicker. I believe I'm missing one in that list there. So they're not shying away at all from the large roster size, and if it means that it's going to have to be cut in a year or 2 years in order to meet the size restrictions, then that's fine. And I do believe, yes, Elijah, that part of the reason that Matt Rhule, you've seen him have such a sizable roster at Nebraska is because he does value those relationships, and players are not moving into the portal at the rate that you see it at plenty of schools around the country.
Mitch Sherman with us, few minutes. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch with The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter, the Locked On Nebraska podcast as well. And Mitch, when we talk about Rhule and Klatt, Klatt asked him about Dylan Raiola, and the talent is obvious when you look at that pedigree. But Rhule spent a lot of time talking about the maturity, the leadership, and he also touched on the other quarterbacks, what this offense needs to be able to do, and that's, throw the football, be better at throwing the football. But a lot of times we get caught up, I'm not saying you, but just in general, we as a fan base or folks that cover the program just look at the talent, right? You look at the film, you look at the talent, but so many times the wild card is, all right, what's the maturity level, the mental makeup, the football IQ? And Rhule did a heck of a job kind of highlighting just the person and the family that Dylan comes from, and that's been spoken about, but it seems pretty applicable, and that's not always the case. You might get a 5-star talent. Does the personality match the talent?
That seems to be the case with Raiola, and knowing them a little bit, that's what I've observed, is that they're very much invested in this experience. And, yeah, you don't always see that. It's not something that you take for granted, whether it's a lower-profile player or certainly somebody who comes in on top of the world with his success in high school and visibility that he had as a recruit. It's easy to lose perspective if you're someone in his situation and, think that it's going to be all about you as a player in college, much in the same way that it was in high school, and it's just not the reality of college football, unless you're, just the truly rare player. And maybe Dylan will be that guy, but that's something that he's got to go out and earn on the field over the next couple of years. So what you end up with is somebody who, in his case, he has the talent, and he seems to be able to check the other boxes too with the intangibles, and that is a rare combination. And the fact that Nebraska has that it bodes well for what's going to happen this year. And I think Rhule referenced this too, even more so in the year after, when he's got a year under his belt. I mean, you can expect him to really be in a position to start to carry the football team in 2026. This year's about bringing him along and allowing him to make the team better, but to be just one piece in a cog. And then I think 2026, you start to look at him as potential face of the program, and we'll see. That's the plan, and it has to work.
Mitch, with Dylan being the potential face of the program, one of the things that I think is interesting is the Dylan Raiola factor is the one thing that does not match Matt Rhule's other rebuilds at Baylor and at Temple. He never had a high-level 5-star guy, especially at a premier position such as quarterback, to be able to build around. Where you look elsewhere, the development along the lines of scrimmage, what he's trying to do defensively, that seems to match what those other rebuilds are. But Dylan Raiola is the wild card. It's what's different. And with that in mind, do you think Dylan Raiola will define Matt Rhule's tenure at Nebraska? How he plays defines what Matt Rhule's legacy will be?
Well, it depends on how long Matt Rhule's at Nebraska. I think he's made it clear that he wants to be at Nebraska for a while, and he's 49 years old, so I don't necessarily see him being on the downward track when he's 52. And it would, if things go well to a place for Dylan Raiola where he is in position to be the defining figure in a coaching tenure, then he's going to be in and out of Nebraska in 3 years. And you may say that Dylan Raiola is the key figure. If it plays out as they hope, he could be the key figure in Nebraska's rebound, in a return to excellence for Nebraska football, in coming out of all of the losing seasons of the past 6 years, 7 years, and turning Nebraska back into a place that plays in the postseason. And maybe by the time Dylan's even done as a contender for the 12-team college football playoff, they've got a lot of ground to make up to get to that place. But I don't think any of them think over the next 3 years at some point that they can't be in that conversation. So, all of that can happen, and he still might not be the defining factor in all of the Rhule era. We'll see what comes next. Maybe one 5-star leads to another 5-star, and, that next guy is joined by several others of his caliber. And it's not just trying to get into contention for the college football playoff, but maybe Nebraska's in a place like a Penn State or Wisconsin or, even in Michigan or Ohio State. That's, it's a long ways away, but, the future is unwritten as far as how this thing is going to go. And that how that plays out is going to tell us, where Dylan's at as far as his role in defining Rhule's legacy.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Mitch Sherman with us, few minutes. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch with The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter, the Locked On Nebraska podcast as well. And Mitch, a lot of celebration and some funny shorts on social media yesterday with Texas and Oklahoma officially joining the SEC. The cafeteria scene was pretty good on social media. What do you anticipate with the Big Ten? Do you feel like the Oregons and Ohio States have staying power? We know that the top three that have been before this expansion, but how fluid do you think the Big Ten as a league is? Teams climbing up the ladder, teams falling down the ladder. Do you think it's a situation where year by year, each year, there's teams jumping up and falling down, top down? Yeah. Or do you think it's something that's similar to what we've seen? You're just going to have more of those big dogs stay big dogs?
First of all, did you think the Arkansas guy, before he got up and moved around, looked a little bit like Matt Rhule?
He looked a lot like Matt Rhule with the goatee and the dark hair, and thankfully, we've not seen Matt Rhule wearing a hog hat. So
yeah, I was wondering why Matt Rhule was playing the Arkansas guy in the SEC short. But anyway, and more poking fun at Texas. Oklahoma, it's like, okay, Oklahoma's in the SEC, and like that kind of goes. It's like par for the course, whatever. They added Oklahoma, but the Texas stuff has been enjoyable, entertaining, I guess, is the way to describe it. I think in the Big Ten, we're going to get that kind of an introduction. I don't know if it'll be that kind of an introduction, but some kind of an introduction when USC and UCLA, Washington, and Oregon join on August 2nd. I agree with what you with your the way you described it about how it's kind of going to be an up and down thing. Now, Ohio State's perhaps a different story. You look at Ohio State's history, and there just haven't been the drop offs. I mean, you had the 1 year when Luke Fickell was an interim before Urban Meyer, but anytime there's been stability on the coaching ranks at Ohio State, they've been a national power, and I expect that to continue. I mean, just look at the resources. It's like Texas. I expect Texas is going to be a power as long as they've got their house in order, and I think that's the same case with Ohio State. And you could probably say something similar for Michigan, although Michigan's had its ups and downs, and maybe going in a direction that's you can't go anywhere but down when you just won the national championship. So we'll see. Oregon's in a great spot right now. But, as long as Dan Lanning is the coach there, and then I expect Oregon is going to continue to be in a spot where it's a dominant program in the Big Ten or whatever conference it happens to be in. But that doesn't mean that, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, what if Lanning goes and coaches the San Francisco 49ers? I think then they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable to fall back to the pack, like just about everybody else except maybe Ohio State. So that's kind of where I sit with that. I do think it's going to be up and down. You're going to have teams that rise up, Penn State, Wisconsin, USC. They're all possibilities. Washington, Nebraska's in that same category. So Iowa, and of course Michigan, it goes without saying, is a power program. But I think Ohio State's kind of in a place by itself as far as you can always expect, unless there's just some total calamity, that the Buckeyes are going to be at or near the top of the Big Ten.
Mitch, quick question. As you look at the four teams entering in here, and I think you'll know what I mean by this, and you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. Do you think any of them get a Nebraska welcome to the Big Ten?
In the sense that, like, they're kind of the kid that gets beat up at recess every day?
Yeah, exactly.
Hazing.
Yeah, I mean, I could see UCLA going through some of that. I could even see USC going through some of that with where it's at as they try to rebuild the defense and replace Caleb Williams. Now, I don't think that'll be long term. I don't think USC is going to go through the struggles over a decade that Nebraska has after joining the Big Ten. And maybe not UCLA, but UCLA could be in for an extended, difficult adjustment. We'll see with that coaching change. Also I think we'll see at Washington. Washington's been up and down over the years, and obviously is coming out of an extreme up with Kalen DeBoer, but he's not there. We'll see what kind of players his replacement Jed Fish is able to bring in there. So Oregon's not going to get the kind of welcome to the Big Ten slap in the face that Nebraska did. It'll be more Oregon doing the slapping in the face this season of Big Ten teams, which, isn't usually the way it goes in conference realignment. But, I do think there's a sense with 4 teams coming in instead of Nebraska came in on its own, obviously, and you had 11 other teams that had to adjust to Nebraska, or 11 other teams. Nebraska had to adjust to 11 other teams, and each of the 11 teams in the Big Ten had to adjust to 1. This year, the tables are a little more even in that the 14 teams that are existing in the league, they've got to adjust to 4 other teams. And I realize they're not all playing each other, but still, over the course of a couple years, they are going to all play each other. And it's more of a difficult adjustment, I think, for the established programs in the Big Ten than it was for the Big Ten establishment when Nebraska came in 2011.
Well, then on the other side, SEC, did Texas and Oklahoma get a Nebraska welcome to the SEC?
OU is their schedule.
Well, they're going to try. They're going to try for sure with both of them, and I wouldn't put anything past the SEC. I mean, Texas was in the college football playoff last year, beat Alabama, as we know, at Alabama, and everyone expects, I think, Texas to be in the 12-team playoff this year. But the SEC is going to be gunning for the Longhorns. There's no doubt. We saw that on day one yesterday. You can see the makings of it's the new big bad boy on the block. Alabama's got to feel weird. Georgia's got to feel weird. It's like, normally they're the team that everyone in the league is looking at and saying, all right, if we're going to beat one team this year, it's going to be Georgia. It's going to be Alabama. I think it's Texas as Texas comes in this year. And I still think Texas will get over on most teams that it plays. That's how talented the Longhorns are and how good Steve Sarkisian has things going right now. It's more iffy at Oklahoma. I could certainly see Oklahoma with where it's at in the growth of its program, still kind of on somewhat shaky ground after Lincoln Riley left a couple years ago. I know year 2 for Brent Venables was an improvement, a big improvement over year 1, but, are they like SEC heavyweight caliber at this moment? I'm not convinced of that. I could see Oklahoma having some real struggles in year 1 in the league. And, being a team that has a hard time getting to 9 wins. We'll see if that's the case, but I do think that there will be welcome to the SEC moments more for Oklahoma than for Texas. Although Texas is not just going to run over everybody. That's not the way it works in that league. I don't care if you're Alabama, LSU, Georgia, whatever. You're going to have some absolute battles, and Texas will have its share this year.
Mitch Sherman with The Athletic. Mitch, enjoy your 4th, bud. Thanks for a few minutes today.
All right, same to you guys. Thanks.
Good to spend an extended time with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. You just caught part of that, or want to hear it again? Take us with, of course, if you're traveling for the 4th. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity Radio. Give us a rating, good, bad, or ugly. We love the feedback and always stream the show. Do so on the YouTube channel, Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. So we'll check in with Brandon Vogel. Vogue's going to join us here to kick off hour 2. Matt Vrzal, former Husker, going to be with us, and we'll talk some Big Red Ball with him. Just intrigued. A lot of poking the bear of Texas and Oklahoma here as they join the SEC officially. OU schedules murder. Texas, though, pretty loaded. Great quarterback room. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. We'll hear from Matt Rhule before we say goodbye in hour 1, specifically on Nebraska, Colorado. That's on the way.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you one final time this hour. Cornhead Lager bringing you Hail Varsity Radio Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, every day. And be sure to check us out with the best ofs if you're taking the roadie. You can still stream the show on your favorite platforms and podcast us as well. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Let's get thoughts from Matt Rhule with Joel Klatt on the Buffs, that showdown week 2.
That game is a monster, almost like it used to be when Colorado and Nebraska would play Friday after Thanksgiving, and it would be for the division or for the Big 8, right to go to the Orange Bowl. That's how I grew up with it. It was a classic. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like Both programs have high expectations, and that game early in the season is a monster game.
Yeah, it's I think the one thing that we always have to remember when we talk about Colorado is how great Shedeur is. He is one of the best football players I've ever coached against. And, we blitzed him. I think we sacked him like 10 times. And we hit him a ton. And he stood in there. And so, I know everyone sees, Shedeur on commercials. They see him, they see the swagger that he plays with. But he's an unbelievable competitor. And he's tough. And so, to me, you take, Shedeur, you take, Travis Hunter, you take all the players that they have, you take, obviously, Coach Sanders, they're going to come into our place. They're a really good football team with dynamic players that you have to compete with. I mean, how good is it for, that part of the country to have this game and have it be national TV at night? How good is it for the game of football? I just don't want football to become this area of the country, this area of the country. I want it to be from coast to coast.
Yeah.
I want all 50 states. And what Deion has done, in my opinion, is he's made football relevant to maybe people that weren't watching it. And so it's our chance to kind of come into that game, and people are going to tune in to see them.
Yeah.
And they'll have a chance to watch us too. And if we play well, maybe people will have that same energy about us nationally that they have about them.
Good take. I mean, hey, it's an opportunity. There was all sorts of Buff love till there wasn't a year ago, and you can replicate that energy. Can you sustain it if you get off to a great start if you're Nebraska? UTEP, first things first.
Well, a lot of Buff love nationally. I mean, EA Sports has them in the top 25, but you see the Big 12 preseason poll that came out today?
Are they 8?
11.
Whew. They're just unproven on the lines.
Buff fans are upset about it, but I mean,
all four of them, when they start out unbeaten again, that's when that bandwagon grows and grows and grows. Moonbot checks in. He's out in Buffland and says, Denver radio guys really think CU's going to beat Nebraska by 2 touchdowns or more. They expect CU a top 15 squad and 15-0.
No, 15 offense, 15 defense.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
They dreaming. We'll see. I think, obviously, you learned Nebraska had 8 sacks. You don't sack somebody 8 times and get blown out. They did a year ago. So it'll be fun. I mean, the focal points will be the quarterbacks, but it's going to be Nebraska's lines of scrimmage that pun intended, rule the day if Nebraska's to get that. And Klatt nailed it. It is a monster game. It is a monster game. And got a few of those, man, on the schedule this year. Early in the year, you host Colorado. Then you go to Ohio State. They're all important. Then you get to SC, also Wisconsin. Brandon Vogel's on the way with Counter Read coming up.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you at Tower 2 at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Brandon Vogel with Counter Read. CounterRead.com. We have moved Vogues up so we could get him in this week as we are doing best ofs here through Friday. So appreciate you checking that out and appreciate you tuning in now. Matt Vrzal going to check in with us also here at 525. Vogues, good to spend time, man. See the pictures of the kids on Instagram. They are loving life in the summertime, and we are just slowly marking off days like Andy Dufresne and Shawshank here till we get kickoff, or at least till we get Big Ten Media Days, man. How you doing? You ready for a weekend of boom?
I'm doing well. I don't know how much boom will be in my weekend plans. Kind of taking the first big family trip, car trip, with both of them departing tomorrow. So however many days there are until football, I have a feeling like the next 5 are going to feel like 10. So my total's actually longer.
Have you been preparing your best, I will pull this car over if it becomes necessary?
It's a Nebraska
I
staple.
haven't, but I think I'll be good to go on that. Like, I can improv it, and I think it'll get the job done. Hopefully.
Are you a look guy or a raise the voice guy? Because your kids, the interactions I see, Junior will sneak into Dad's office once in a while and kind of peek up on a Saturday morning edition. Little Frankie seems to be smiling when I see a shot of her as well. So, what is the stance? Is it the look? Like Archie gave Peyton and Eli in that Sports Center commercial, or is it the tone?
I think I try. I don't raise my voice a lot, but I think tone is probably more my area of expertise. My wife, who's an educator, insists that she has like one of the best. Hey, it's time to knock it off looks. And that's proven out, through full-time employment with students for a long time. So I'll give her that one.
Well, one of the most important
That's
things,
a good combo.
I think one of the most important things, though, to keeping kids, and I say this as the guy with no kids, I think one of the most important parts to keeping them behaved on a road trip is the proper entertainment. Do you have proper entertainment? Are you going for the quiet game? Do you have movies planned? What's the entertainment status of this road trip?
Duct tape.
No screens for this one. So, which maybe the last wrong decision I get to make. But so we're just gonna go books. We got some new coloring books that we'll deploy as like a special surprise if needed, kind of a break in case of emergency, and we're just gonna ride it out. We're doing the trip in 2 legs, so neither one should be that long of a drive, but who knows?
I think as I've done some thinking here, the best way to keep them in check, keep them in quiet, is threaten them with putting on the Hail Varsity Radio podcast should they misbehave. You guys are going to have to listen to Schmitty again if you guys don't shut up back there.
They will be quiet. They'll be able to drive to Alaska. So I love this. In the Vogel household, Mama and Vogues, it's like the Weebacks. One of you is Calvin, and the other's Derek Brown, with the look and the tone.
Yeah, thunder and lightning. You want to have both approaches covered. So yeah, we'll put it to the test in the days ahead.
Vogues, I want to jump in. I know the Common Fan podcast dropped their Bo Pelini episode yesterday. Love talking with your buddies. You're working on the Common Fan podcast as well, and Sammy McEwen, super awesome, super talented. You dove all into Bo without spoilers. It's just it's a topic that is still fascinating 10 years later with what side of the fence you were on, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we went for 90 minutes and it felt like, we were having to hurry along a little bit. I mean, it's just such a interesting time at Nebraska. I think Bo is first of all, he's a very good football coach, but a kind of a fascinating person as well. And then when you put it in the context of, all of the coaching hires post Osborne, like, you can make the argument certainly for Frank Solich. But if it's not him, Bo's been the best. And so it's a little bit weird to revisit 2014 when, it really felt almost perfectly split of people who are like, hey, he's winning 9 games a year. Like, sure, maybe the antics are getting to be a little bit too frequent, but it would be crazy to do this again. And then you had another portion of people who are very much just like, yeah, this is just what it is. It's not going to be different. So if you aspire to more, it's time to make a change.
You know what? I mean, his antics may be a little bit more demonstrative and frightening on the sideline with that wood chipper dude from Fargo look, like, the dead stare. That said, I mean, Saban would lose his mind on the sideline, and guess what? He was going 12-1 or 13-0, so, well, that's just Nick, right? I mean, what a difference a couple more wins a year would have made.
Yeah, just one more win in 2009, 2010 would have changed the tone of a lot of things, or even 2012. I said on the podcast, we were asked if winning a conference title changes anything. I think it changes everything for Bo, especially if you get that 2012 one. It's almost like resetting the clock. Probably gets an extension. The question was, this was there. Back in 2013, 14 when we were there. But I think it's coming to sharper focus. I wonder how long Bo Pelini would have been for Nebraska. We know that he kind of looked around at a couple of other jobs.
He had offers.
Certainly clashed.
He had offers for Penn State and Miami. And I'm probably missing one.
And, clashed with leadership certainly there towards the end. So 2012 would have got him more time for sure if Nebraska had, gotten a conference championship. I just wonder his interest level in continuing.
Brandon, can we play the hypothetical game here for just a second?
I think he would have gone to Arkansas, honestly.
I think he tried to.
Yeah.
And they chose Bielema.
Yeah, because I can't hire the guy that just got beat 70-31 in the Big 10 title game. I think he's off to Arkansas in 2014.
Well, Brandon, to bring it to modern day, let's go hypothetical here. Now that we've seen what the past decade has been, if Matt Rhule never gets better than a 4-loss season, which is what Bo was known for, 9-4, 10-4 every single year. If Matt Rhule never eclipses that mark, do you think Husker fans view it differently than they did during Bo, or do you think after a couple of years of that, Husker fans return back to where they were circa 2013?
Well, I think do anything long enough, and people will eventually wonder what else there is. That said, I think the context is completely different. If Matt Rhule does exactly, if we could say over the next 7 years, Matt Rhule will have the exact same record as Bo Pelini. So that would mean, catching up from a 5-7 start, which Bo didn't have. But 4 losses every year, but, I'm not remembered his bowl game record off the top of my head. So there's a couple seasons where he finished 9-3. Were they 10-2? I think they were 10-2 once. You do that, you're probably going to be at a 12-team college football playoff, which I think is going to become kind of like the most basic marker of success as we go forward. Conference title will be a little bit better than that because in the Big Ten, that'll get you a number 1 or number 2 seed. And then national title all the way at the top. So I think college football playoff expanding changes a lot with this discussion.
Putting the bow on Bo, he had playoff teams. How many, 7 years here, how many of his squads were playoff caliber, in your opinion? If we zoom out to 12.
Yeah, in a 12 team, 09 probably, 10 definitely, 11 you're probably on the outside looking in, but 12 you probably would have been there.
14.
So that's 4 out of 7.
I think you're on the line with 14. The conference title game performance may have dropped you out of it, but I still think you would have snuck in the back end. I go 9, 10, 12, 14.
I think if they would have, they were there. They had a chance to, in 14, to either beat Michigan State or Wisconsin on the road. Great comeback against Sparty and fell short. And then they were beating the hell out of Wisconsin for a quarter and a half. And then Melvin woke up.
Yeah.
Take a drink.
I mean, we look at Penn State in 2024. It's like, oh yeah, that's one of the teams you put in the playoff discussion for sure. Get out of the East Division. It's not just about being better than Ohio State or Michigan. Like, that would have been Nebraska a lot of the time under Pelini. Like, I think that's where they would have been going into most of his seasons because, well, never won fewer than 9.
Vogue's going to go to Klatt and Rhule here.
I'd like to quickly note I had my year screwed up. 14, no title game. I was thinking, though, with the if you get it done in Minnesota, how that changes things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 2013. You don't lose that one for sure. What nugget or kernel did you take out of what was most interesting to you with Klatt and Rhule yesterday?
There's quite a bit there. I can tell you one of the quotes I've already transcribed for something I'm working for later on. Matt Rhule quote: "I'm a coach. I'm not going to say too much, but I think we have a pretty good team. Kind of quiet confidence when I walk around about here, about where we're headed. Is it this year? I think it is. Is it next year? Definitely." That's more than most coaches would say, even though he said he's not going to say much because he's a coach. Like, his confidence level, that the things he just was willing to say about Nebraska, where it's at, where he thinks they can be this year, and where they're going in the future, was the biggest piece that jumped out to me. I mean, there was some more interesting stuff there that I think about roster construction, which I'll be writing about in a little bit at Counter Read. But that was a big one. Like, it's easy to like slow play, when you're a team that seems to be trending up and you have a history of trending up as a coach in other spots. Matt Rhule didn't do any of that. He's like, yeah, I could see us being a problem this year, to paraphrase. This didn't come across, Elijah or Vogues, like he's selling it or hyping it. I mean, it just his honest take. Yeah, I mean, another one, I don't have the exact quote. He said, he's like, if we're not minus 17 in turnovers, he's like, yeah, I think we could be a problem for some people this year, and potentially be a playoff contending team. Like, so it was, there was no like, let's tap the brakes here. But like you said, it also didn't feel like he was selling it. It just felt like he was answering Klatt's questions in a way that most coaches are too cautious to answer them.
Brandon, are we talking about the turnovers enough this offseason? I think it was a pretty big topic of discussion, at least during spring football. Dylan Ryle maybe quelled some fears during the spring game, but are we talking about that enough? Because that has been the trend with Nebraska, and that has been the one thing you can point to year after year that really hampers this football team.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is a little recency bias just because Matt Rhule talked about him a bunch, but I feel like we talk about him enough. Honestly, I don't know what you do about it, like, other than hope one of these years you go +7. But that reminds me of another thing from that interview with Klatt that jumped out to me. Rhule said at some point, more than the turnovers, he's like, I think it was the lack of a competent passing game that might have made the difference between at least getting one more win last year and getting to a bowl game. So I thought that stood out. The turnover piece of it, I'm kind of like, if Nebraska just is like neutral, +2, -2 at the end of the year, probably fine. You get a true sense of what Nebraska is. They go way positive. Maybe you get a little bit of inflated sense. You benefit in a way that Nebraska hasn't in a long time. And yeah, it would feel a little like smoke and mirrors. At least that's how I tend to approach teams that have a big positive swing in turnovers. But at Nebraska, they consistently have a negative swing. So it'd be nice to see in Lincoln one time.
Vogue's going to wind down here about 60 seconds. The family truckster is loaded. You're going on that big trip with the kiddos. Where are you going?
Well, like a lot of Americans around the 4th of July, we're going to Pittsburgh. No.
Are you going to see the ballpark or no?
I was initially making plans to. The Pirates are in town. I don't think it's gonna play out that way, but I did think about taking the oldest to the Sunday afternoon game. So we'll see. But now headed up there for a wedding.
Okay.
Like many people.
Most of America, I'm going to the Steel City. Do you own black and gold?
Well, I'm pretty much all black here. I've got a couple of yellow shirts somewhere. You guys want towels? You want terrible towels?
I think that'd be good. I'd take a Clemente era Pittsburgh Pirates hat.
If you see Russell Wilson, give him my love.
And say thank you.
Yeah.
Vogues, best to you. Enjoy time with the fam. Thank you much, man.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, get subscribed to Counter Read, counterread.com. Matt Vrzal coming up with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and we talk with Matt Vrzal, former Husker, the pride of Grand Island, and the man at Pison's Pizzeria, host of Husker Hangover. And Verz, we were talking to Coach McBride yesterday, and we were getting Charlie's insight. We asked him if he made his own fireworks, and he said no, but he thought about it. But a guy at the lake, I guess, was an old demolition guy from the military, and I guess blew an 8-foot deep hole in Coach McBride's beach one 4th of July setting. And I guess I'm asking you, are you a big fireworks guy? Were you a big fireworks dude in Grand Island growing up?
Yeah, it was a different time. I think they started selling June 4th, so you had a full month. So by the time the actual 4th was there, you had kind of expired from it. But no, that's awesome. And there's all the stuff they do with them now is just crazy, all the things that they can accomplish. So it's pretty fun. So
were you the guy lighting the fuse, or were you watching?
No, I was you light them. Light and run. Hope you get away and hope it doesn't tip over. Throwing fireworks, black cats, M80s. We had a kid down the street had some M80s, so that was always interesting. Any
authorities catch on, or was that just fun in central Nebraska?
We threw one down. We threw one down. We blew the manhole cover off the drain. Then we all just took off home.
What
There's nobody there at the scene of the crime. You can't really get caught.
What type of explosion were you talking here? Because there was that U.S. military test where they lit off not lit off wouldn't be the right word. They exploded a nuclear weapon underground with a manhole cover on top, and they sent it into orbit and out of the solar system in a ridiculous speed. You can look it up. It's a crazy test.
The one went that high.
No, it's like literally out of the solar system now. Yeah, it was wild. But are we talking that type of explosion here? How high did this manhole cover get?
What was the air?
We probably got about 6-8 foot out of it.
That's big.
It's no nuclear explosion, but I didn't think Matt would have access to nuclear weapons.
No, just a neighbor with some M80s. No names, just a neighbor that had some M80s.
Matt Vrzal's with us. Verz, got to talk some football here. Thanks for talking forth with us, and interested to kind of get your thoughts. We were talking with Mitch Sherman a little earlier about the rise and fall, where the Big Ten is going to be here in 2024 and beyond. When you guys were dominating the Big Eight, did you pay attention to teams that were trying to catch you? And I know most of the league was, but was there an awareness with those Huskers you were a part of, with Colorado, with Kansas State? How did you treat those guys?
You knew, Coach Osborne and crew did a great job of you had to respect your opponents, but you never feared an opponent. And so if you weren't watching, like you would watch a score and be like, oh, they won last week, but you weren't breaking. I think too much right now, kids get themselves psyched out by somebody. That's your next opponent. And I was watching a clip today of Buzz Williams. It's never about the output. It's always about the input. So if you go handle your business and you play to the best of your game and your ability, then what they do is irrelevant. And if you're disciplined enough, you've worked hard enough, you're going to overcome it because you just won't break. Like you won't make the mistake when you're trained well enough. So those are, you never really look. You knew who everybody was, but you weren't looking at an opponent like, oh man, we gotta be leery of them. It was never anything like that.
It's Matt Vrzal with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, and Matt, I guess coming into a season, did you even have an idea of what other teams were doing? I know the social media age has kind of changed things for a lot of young athletes, but did you even have an idea what was going on with teams when they entered the season? I know there's the occasional scoreboard watching as you kind of laid out, but did you even know what the offseason looked like for other teams, or were you solely focused on the input?
There were, we weren't with the Telegraph or Morse code. There were magazines and people did exposés. ESPN did exist, so you always had just little snippets everywhere. But yeah, kids now kind of search it out. We never really had that much concern about it.
Verz, how'd you prepare yourself, man? I mean, let's talk about your off season, your work, and kind of the standard that existed.
It was a good part. I mean, Boyd and Brian Bailey and Mike Arthur and Randy Goebel, they had the system set. There wasn't a lot of thought. So much now, kids think there's better somewhere. Oh, I'm not going to work out with my team. I'm going to go to this personal trainer. To which I just, through my coaching career, I was like, great, you can go play for his team. Because your team is here working out together, and you're bleeding, and you're sweating, and you're getting better as a unit. You want to go by yourself, and you want to go off with your trainer, go ahead. You can do that. I have no problem with it. Just do it after we get our work done. You want to go get extra, I'll never fault you for getting extra in. So that's one thing. I work with kids privately, but that's another thing. I'm like, we will do nothing until all of your work with your teammates and your own personal coaches are done. Then if you want to get some extra work in, we'll go on the weekend when it doesn't interfere with anything your coach is doing, and we'll go from there. So it builds camaraderie, it builds team, it builds all those great things that football can bring to life. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of debate. You weren't going to stray from the required. You just did what you were told.
Matt Vrzal's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Verz, I'm looking at a sheet here for 1890 and Tee Up for Husker Baseball. That's coming up August 23rd. And pretty awesome with Husker Baseball. And I know you like to swing the sticks when you get a breather. So who are the three teammates you're drafting, my friend? I know this is not part of it, but if Verz is picking his three teammates, who you golfing with?
We had a team we played with quite a lot. Like, we played some smaller town scrambles, and bad gas travels fast, so people figured it out. But very simple. It's very easy. It's Billy LaFleur,
okay,
Corey Mikas, and Matt Hoskinson, and we will take on any and all comers. We've played some rounds and put down some scores. So Corey is a stick. Haas is really good. I like regiment in things, so I will just get up and hit first and just put one in the fairway, and then let the bombers bomb. And then if you can get me to the dance floor, I'll make a putt.
So you're saying you both drive for show and putt for dough?
No. I'm just putting one. I'm a team guy.
Team guy.
So my role in a scramble team is to get a ball in the fairway 200 plus yards out there. So if I get that, then they relax because they know that they don't have to worry about anything. They can just go swing.
So Verz is the automatic.
Hope to be.
Well,
that's the way it worked last time we played. So
he's what allows his teammates to be at their best because he's taking the pressure off. That's a team guy. I see the vision. Why?
Forever a team guy.
All those years with Grant's tournament. Why did Wistrom just stay? Why did he stay away from golf? Let me ask you that. I have to ask him next time. We talked to him last week, and I didn't bring up golf. But what's his? He'd roll around and taunt and heckle, which was great, but he wasn't swinging from the tee box ever.
Some people like just the solace, I guess, of golf. Where it's just kind of you're doing your thing. That's why I enjoy playing in scrambles because they're kind of fun because you're back on a team. Grant, probably maybe just a little bit more of a round peg, square hole kind of guy. And so the finesse of the game of golf really never appealed to him. And, some of it, I don't think his dad, Ron, ever played a whole bunch. So they were out there to have a good time. They were out there to make sure everybody was entertained and a good time was had by all.
I think the marshals also tend to frown on the wacky tobacco out in the golf course.
Yeah. Verz, let's spend a little bit here. Yay or nay on Texas and Oklahoma now in the SEC. What does the Verz crystal ball say about their fitting into the league?
It's it'll be interesting to me how they both adapt to it, because you're going to be going from the big fish to what could be perceived as the smaller fish. You know, there's some monsters in those waters out there. I don't know what they gave them for schedule to join the league, but Oklahoma always has a ton of talent. They will be fine. Venables is a great defensive coach. He will have game plans put together. He will know what he is doing. And Texas is Texas. You know, they're also very talent rich. Don't have to go real far to recruit. Sark, I'm not real sold on him. I think he's kind of screwball, but we'll see what happens, and they'll get to find out real quick what it's like in the SEC. So we shall see what happens here in about 60 days.
Well, OU's schedule, I just pulled it up. They host Tennessee. They're at Auburn. Texas for the State Fair. They host South Carolina. They're at Ole Miss. They're at Missouri. They host Bama. They're at LSU. So, old Venables, it is pretty much murder walking in with OU's schedule. It's brutal, especially some of those road games I laid out. 7 wins, year one.
That's what you want. I would say they'll do all right. They'll fare. I'm not sold really this year on LSU. I know everybody's pretty high on them, but I don't know if they're going to be what they're billed to be. But you know, Bama's got a new coach, and who's to say by what point in time of the year, if it doesn't go well for Bama early, that it doesn't work out, and then you got naysayers and the ivory towers may start to collapse. So there's a lot for some of those higher end teams. You know, they got a lot to prove. I would just be happy you dodged Georgia because if you're in the SEC and you don't have to play Georgia, that's a pretty good deal right there.
That's
Kirby's got it. Kirby's got it going.
Good point. They are 3 deep and pretty salty. Matt Vrzal will spend a little bit more time with Verz on the other side. Good insight here from Matt Vrzal. Love hearing his thoughts and getting caught up with him. We'll also try and squeeze in Matt Rhule before we say goodbye. Rhule and Klatt, the Carolina experience. A little bit of a longer answer, but we'll get there. Before we say goodbye, make sure you download Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. It's the Hail Varsity Radio podcast. Like and subscribe. Give us some feedback. Also, the Hail Varsity Radio YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Can watch the show that way. More with Verz and Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Matt Vrzal's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Athlon came out with their projections for the Big Ten, and they have Nebraska in at 7 out of 18. Would you buy and lock that in, pretend it's an interest rate that's not obscene? Would you take that here, year 2?
Oh, yeah, for year 2. Yep. You take it 100% of the time. They get to 7 wins. I think you're ahead of schedule. You know, they've got more depth than they probably have had in the past, and they're building. So for coach after coach after coach, right? Mm-hmm. Callahan, Pelini, Riley, Frost, all of them. The only thing I've ever been wanting any one of them to do is just lay a foundation to then continue to build on. And none of them wanted to do that. They wanted to. Well, Pelini would have been the best at it, but you have to have somewhere to start after it's all fallen to the ground. And so, if you look at what Rhule and his guys do, is they have a different set of expectations for their kids, and those kids probably will never live up to the expectations of the coach. But if they're efforting to get there, then that's all you're really asking. And when they start to do that, then these young guys come in. And then they start to believe in that system. Hey, all I got to do is do what they tell me, go as hard as I can, do these things, and I'll be fine here. And then as you build that, now you hit lightning in a bottle, and you get guys like Tommy Frazier and Amon Green and Grant Wistrom and Jason Peter, and you get those guys on your team. They've bought into it because they were raised that way, and now you've got a bunch of hardworking people that now you've upped your talent level. Now you go on to compete for conference championships, national championships. The methodology is very simple, in speaking, but you have to start it somewhere. Like, you have to have guys that believe in what you're doing and believe that if I work hard, it will work for me. So when you don't have guys like that, then it doesn't work.
Matt
You're building something different now than you have probably in the past 3 or 4 regimes of coaches.
Excuse me, bud, stepping on you there. Matt Vrzal's with us. I was interested to get your input on who was your big brother? Like, who kind of showed you the way? Who'd you observe from? Because that's what Rhule spent some time talking about with Klatt yesterday, that, okay, our younger guys are seeing our older guys do it this correct way. When you were brought in and you guys continued to stack like you're talking about, right, that foundation you touch on, who are the upperclassmen you guys were able to learn from, not just the coaches, but your peers?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a great time to be a lineman at Nebraska. There's a laundry list, like Will Shields right out of the gate. You know, I was a 300-pound freshman from Grand Island, and the first drill we did with the varsity, he had me in the air. Like, I was in the air, which, in the words of Ricky Bobby, this is not good. And so, you know, he knocked me on my ass, and he came over and helped me out, and he said, "Welcome to Nebraska." I said, "I'm from Nebraska." "No, I've been here." And he said, "Well, this is how we do it here." He goes, and so, you know, you got guys like that. Jim Scott was another great, you know, just leader, like a good dude. Lance Lumberg, Kenny Malin, and then you get into, you know, your Styes, your Wilkses, your Zadiskas, guys that I had played with, except for Stye in high school. Uyghur was in there. And they had all these guys that just were willing to help if you were young, and you know, if they saw you struggling, they would kind of, hey, keep your head up, you know, do these kind of things. And I got Lumpy was bad at algebra. I was good at school. I was his tutor. He was like, "Hey, thanks, man. You helped me out a bunch." I was like, "Great, this is awesome." So it was. I was very fortunate to have just a ton of good people around us at that time. And that's a tribute to Dan and Milt. That's how they built their room. That's what their room was about. When you were in there together, and you were all going to do it together, or it wasn't going to work. So.
It's Matt Vrzal with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Matt, as we wind it down here, I want to bring this back to the 4th of July, also tie it in with conference realignment a little bit, because I look at these West Coast schools coming to the Big Ten. You have some, I guess, West Coast IPA-style beers coming to Busch Light country. With Texas and Oklahoma, it feels like it's Busch Light drinkers heading out to, what's a popular beer down south, Schmitty? What'd you go for?
Well, you got Ole Miss and then everybody else.
Yeah, so you only one school ain't going to be drinking the Blue Yummies. The rest of them are all like that.
Well, you got Yinlings, too. It could be Yinling country, maybe. Anyway, to bring it back to the 4th of July. For somebody in Nebraska, what is the ideal 4th of July beer, in Matt Vrzal's opinion?
I don't drink beer anymore, so I'm not really a beer aficionado, but I am heading to a party that the over-under on Busch Light consumed will probably be in the hundreds. So the Blue Yummies will always flow in the state of Nebraska. It's why the first Busch Light draw of the day at Paisan's Pizzeria is always on me. So it's part of us, and that's the way it'll be.
That is a good call.
And a good little bit of free advertising, too.
I love it. Verz, we appreciate you, man. Have a great 4th. Thanks for giving us a few minutes today.
Yeah, boys. Have a good one.
Good to talk some ball with Verz, as we'll sneak in that Klatt cut with Matt Rhule on his time in Carolina.
You know, I'd say I learned a lot. I'd say I learned a lot of things. I would not be able to be the head coach of Nebraska had I gone through that. Every decision you make is magnified in Nebraska 10 times over. And if you're not really confident in who you are, I could see it really affecting you. I could see you, compromising. You know, I have such a different relationship with our players now. When I'm able to tell them, because, this generation is so concerned with how people see them. Mm. And, for me, I've been national coach of the year. I've been, hopefully we can have him be our coach. I've been a meme and laughed at on SportsCenter. And as Rudyard Kipling says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters the same. And so I've been able to teach my own kids that. When I go out there now and the crowd's cheering, I've also had 50,000, 70,000 people in Panther Stadium screaming to fire me. And what I learned through all of that is, man, I just want to make it about my players. It's not about me. Coaches say that, but they mean it is about them. It's really not about me. Like, I came back to college football because I knew young people needed coaches that cared about them, coaches that don't want to throw them away, coaches that don't want to give up on them, coaches that want to make a environment where they can be safe to have failures but grow. And if I learned anything during that time there, it was Christian McCaffrey, Brian Byrne, all these amazing players I had a chance to coach. They're just people. You know, you see them as superstars, but they're just people. And so I lost a little bit of that during COVID. One of the worst things I did is early on there, you know, you go in to be a head coach, you don't know anybody, COVID hits, and then when it kind of came back, I didn't connect enough. And then my last year, I did an amazing job, I think, of connecting with a lot of those players, and they battled for me to the very end. But I come back to college now, and I'm like, it's all about human connection, because the portal and everyone will tell you, like, it's just a business. It's not a business. It's not. It's college football. These players, they need a coach that believes in them. Bad teams need a good coach. You know, there's so many things that I learned in my time in Carolina, but if anything, it was have connections with the players, and you know what? Lead them through good times and bad. Don't worry about what people say about you. Don't just worry about, am I doing the right thing for our guys to win? And so those experiences, I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful that I went to Carolina. I'm so grateful for what it did for my family, because we are so much closer now. I'm so much closer with my players now. And that's why I believe Nebraska will win. And you know what? We'll win, and people will be like, Coach, are you going to go here? Are you going to go there? Da-da-da-da. And no, I love Nebraska, and I love the people there, and I love my players, because for the first time, they're not the players, they're my players, and I love these guys. And just that time in Carolina maybe reborn that to me, and that's why I'm so happy to be back in college football.
I think this is the first time in my life that I've ever wanted to be a Husker after that speech right there.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Good stuff from Vrzal today. Check that out on the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Also, Brandon Vogel kicked off hour 2. Mitch Sherman in the first hour. Best ofs tomorrow and on the 4th and Friday. So giddy up. Check those out. They'll be posted as well on...
Sorry.
No, they'll be posted on Podform, yay or nay?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool.
Definitely the 3rd and the 4th should be posted. The 5th is going to be some more recent stuff. I said yesterday I hadn't begun work on them. I can confirm today I am fully entrenched in the creation of our best ofs. No. No, I am not.
So I got to go get you drive-through is what you're telling me.
Oh, no. I had a late lunch today. I planned this out tactfully. I will say some great guests coming up. Everyone from...
Who are you surprising me with?
I don't think I'm surprising you with anyone.
Can you spill it? I don't know what you got planned.
What you got? Okay, well,
It could be just 3 days of Elijah, and that'd be fine, too.
Just me sitting here for 2 hours talking into a mic about nothing in particular. No.
Brennan says Shinerbach. You were asking Verz about beer. Verz is a Bloody Mary guy.
Shinerbach, I will say, has probably been my beer of the summer thus far. Great beer. Love me a good Shinerbach.
I'm just stuck with Coors Light.
You know, Shinerbach's been my go-to over the past month or so.
Stuck with Coors Light and, of course, Cornhead Lager.
Great choice. Great choice. Me as well.
Very refreshing.
I will say, okay, in terms of best ofs, we got coming up. We got a little bit coming up from Mike Leach this week. The Pirate, the late great. We got Danny Woodhead.
Cool.
Niles Paul.
All right.
Matt Slauson.
Slaw Daddy.
Yes,
Did you ever have the Slaw Daddy burrito?
I don't think so.
It was like 2 or 3 burritos into one.
I don't think I have. I may have made copycats at my house whenever I'm quite hungry and maybe a little bit drunk.
But it was, I don't know, there was some sort of Slaw Daddy goes to the burrito joint during one of the Coach Bill Callahan coaches shows, and that was a halftime Husker Vision feature, was Slaw Daddy's burrito. And Callahan lost his mind. Like, that's too much.
Oh, I almost forgot. Sorry, to get back to the best ofs, if you missed the Hail Varsity Radio spelling bee from the end of May.
That was gold.
We're going to get that replayed.
That was you versus Claus.
Yes, me versus Claus. I could not spell any Eastern European names what were my names? Wally Zarbiak.
Zerbiak.
Could not spell that. Giannis I was really close on. Mike Krzyzewski I was just screwed. You picked a hell of a name for me. But yeah, so plenty of fun stuff planned for the best ofs over the next couple days. Again, you can check those out wherever you hear Hail Varsity Radio on terrestrial radio. Not going to be on the stream. I will warn you. No stream over the next couple of days.
So no YouTube,
no Twitter, but the full shows will be posted up in podcast form over the next couple of days. Then we'll be back with live shows coming your way next Monday. Schmidt, you're taking the week off next week, so it's going to be myself, Will Wilson, taking you through the week next week.
I'm excited. I'm playing in the Team Jack golf outing Monday, doing that, and then we are off to central and western Nebraska with Jaybird. We're going to golf at Wild Horse. We're going to golf in Cambridge. I think it'd be cool to golf in Ogallala, and we'll see if I can twist his arm on that. But I will be golfing and more golfing and eating some of Nebraska's best beef.
That sounds awesome. I'm jealous.
So it's all good. Back at you. Thanks for tuning in. Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.